Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back to this discussion of the Arthurian tarot decks. And today I'm going to read to you a story a little bit about the magician and the mythology of Merlin, or Muradin as he is also known. On the left is Legend, the Arthurian Tarot by Anna Marie Ferguson, and on the right is the Arthurian Tarot by Kathleen and John Matthews. And in this beautiful painting, Merlin retreats to the isolation of his mountain cave. Surrounded by nature, he is able to center himself and connect with the forces that work through him. This solitary existence allows him to hear the words of the winds and learn of things yet to come. Merlin is the guardian of the sacred spring, which flows in the foreground, representing the wise and honorable use of precious resources. And I love how in her language she is connecting so much that we already know about the magician, particularly listening to the wind. And that really resonates with me in feeling the energy of Mercury and the element of air, and even the healing energy of magicians past, such as Asclepius. A wolf was said to have kept company with Merlin. This familiar symbolizes the magician's sensitivity to the forces of the wild. His powers come from understanding their nature rather than their domination. It is a relationship not of fear, but of mutual respect. Foxgloves grow alongside the stream. Having long been associated with the fairy, they are a reminder that Merlin neither dwells nor works alone. He is surrounded, inspired, and assisted by the unseen spirits of the wood, the dryads. The plant itself is extremely poisonous, a bringer of death, and yet when refined, it is a powerful cardiac medicine, a giver of life. This illustrates the crucial preparation, training, and knowledge needed if one is to advise or lead others. It also serves as a warning against overconfidence, and as there are always dangers present when engaging powers of a dual nature. Merlin's rich blue cloak represents his honored standing in the world of men, while the feathers are a symbol of the shaman's spiritual flight and metamorphosis. It's so interesting, this description, and I'm going to read you a couple lines from this deck as well, too. And in Anna Marie Ferguson's earlier deck, the Llewellyn Tarot, she placed Merlin in the position of the hermit, also retreating towards his cave, rather than having the magician out front and facing the querent, which we usually see in a number one arcanum. In the Matthews book, they write, the early life of Merlin is often forgotten, but it is of prime importance in understanding his role in the Arthurian cycle. Merlin was born of an earthly mother and an otherworldly father, thus establishing him as a prime mover and mediator between the two realities of this world and the other world. And so, indeed, he is a figure who is able to weave energy and weave light and help us to understand and find connections among the elements. And continuing from legend, Merlin is one of the most famous and fascinating Arthurian characters. Though it is likely that Merlin the sage did exist, the embroidered Merlin of legend is most probably a composite of several historical figures and Celtic gods. Merlin was born a fatherless child of a virgin, which, when coupled with his uncanny gifts, led others to believe that his was an unnatural birth. This suspicion surrounding his origin meant that, although Merlin would come to be respected, he was also feared. On occasion, Merlin would use his sphere to his advantage. As chief druid, Merlin had a close relationship with the damsels of the lake. He was a prophet, poet, engineer, and counselor to the high kings. With an eye always on the future of Britain, Merlin often helped shape future events. And as the following tale demonstrates, he played a crucial role in the birth and ascendancy of Arthur. The beautiful Igraine first met the newly crowned High King Uther when accompanying her husband, the Duke of Cornwall, on a visit to London. Uther's attraction to her was immediate, and before long the king could think of nothing else. Sensing the brewing trouble, the Duke abruptly left London, taking Igraine back to Cornwall and securing her within the walls of Tintagel. Uther followed under the pretense that the defiant Duke intended to undermine his reign. Uther's men clashed with the Duke's forces, but still the cliffs of Tintagel and the sea kept Igraine beyond Uther's reach. Driven by frustration, Uther turned to Merlin for help. Upon hearing the story, Merlin became annoyed with the king for having risked civil war over his love for Igraine. After careful thought, however, Merlin agreed to help Uther reach the fair Igraine. His aid would be given on one condition, that the child conceived that night would be entrusted to his care. In his haste, the king agreed. By his arts, Merlin transformed Uther into the likeness of the Duke, and that night the sage sent Uther into the castle posing as the returning Duke. As the king lay with Igraine, his men engaged in battle with the Duke and his followers. The Duke died in the battle, and this would plague Uther's conscience all of his days. Not wishing to be reminded of this, the child conceived in the shadow of the Duke's death was given to Merlin as promised. Seemingly out of nowhere, Merlin appeared to claim the infant Arthur. Then, child in arms, he disappeared beyond the horizon. Throughout Arthur's early days, Merlin would often appear at crucial moments, and then, with an air of mystery, retreat again into his wilderness. In this sense, Merlin was a bringer of the future, at times even its architect, manipulating events to ensure the healing of his torn land. I love the adjective that Anna Marie Ferguson used early in her description of Merlin as embroidered. These tales are indeed embroidered. This character is embroidered and layered. And if we look at the archetype of the magician, I think this is one that is not easy to understand, regardless of the deck that you are working with. It is a number one, and I never want to disregard that there is some sort of a initiation, a change, something that is opening, something that is happening, something that is being created. The wand is definitely an important part of this, and we don't necessarily see, maybe there is a wand in this hand here. I love the feathers that are on this cloak, and I believe these are owl feathers. There's something about the wisdom here that feels really important. And I suppose to me, there's also in these cards that sense of wisdom that I don't necessarily see in a Waite Smith deck. I see a picture of a magician and don't necessarily feel the wise one that is present. I, in the past, have often called the magician card a rookie card. I feel that we could be with a young Frankenstein in his laboratory. We need to be really careful of what's happening. And yet, in this tale, and in many tales of Merlin, there is a wandering between worlds and a real sense of unknown and mystery. And do we trust in the magic and the mystery? So I want to bring in that layer and that idea of the unknown. And perhaps this card is also an invitation to our own trust of all that cannot be seen. This was the Fool card from the Claire Duval deck. And looking at Merlin here, you really do get that sense of wonder and magic and trust in nature. Merlin also appears in her deck in the Temperance card. There's a card like this in another card that is painted by an Arthurian. It might be the Two of Swords in Tarot of Echoes, where the woman appears to be healing um, the torn land. And I don't know if I get that feeling here. It almost feels malevolent, but I will get to Temperance in a later episode. So let me know what you think of this energy of Merlin. Is it suited to the position of the magician? And in the stories that you have read and the movies and television series you have watched, have you come to know Merlin as one who lives on the outskirts and lives in the nether regions, or one who's more present and working in and with the leadership of Camelot? I really do appreciate your contributions to these discussions, and I will see you soon to discuss the High Priestess. Namaste.